Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Tiana Godsey. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the events coordinator for Natural Lands. I'm happy to welcome you tonight to our Outdoors Online Nature, Zombies, and Vampires webinar with Allegheny Land Trust Senior Director of Education and Curriculum, Julie Travaglini. Thank you so much for joining us, Julie, and everyone who knows Julie, you know we're in for a treat. Very, very excited to learn more from you tonight. Before we get started, just a few things. The event is recorded. If you need to leave the meeting, no worries. We can let you back in, and we will share the recording with you after the event, hopefully within a week's time. Due to the webinar style, you will be muted. If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to leave them in the chat. And if you need any technical support, you can also leave that there. But no worries if you get booted out, we can let you back in. So quickly before I begin, I'd like to introduce Natural Lands. Many of you are familiar with us, but we have a few probably new members joining us this evening. So thank you so much for your support. We are a nonprofit organization serving Eastern PA and Southern New Jersey to preserve and nurture nature's wonders and create opportunities for joy and discovery in the outdoors for everyone. We've been at it since the 1950s. And today, nearly 5 million people live within 5 miles of lands under our permanent protection. We do this by saving open space, caring for nature with our 42 nature preserves and 1 public garden. We have people who I know mentioned Stone Lee here, which is in Villanova. If you haven't visited that, I highly suggest you do. And of course, to connect people out to the outdoors and each other like we're doing tonight, even online. So very briefly, a quick moment to thank each and every one of you who is a member. Your support makes these events and everything happen. So thank you very much. And then the moment you've all been waiting for, I'm happy to introduce our presenter, Julie Travaglini. As I mentioned before, Julie is Allegheny Land Trust Senior Director of Education and Curriculum. She regularly travels the country speaking at conferences on the importance of innovative environmental education for all. She has also won multiple awards for her work, including Outstanding Environmental Educator of the Year. In her spare time, she can be found looking for mushrooms, enjoying our national parks, or crocheting mythical creatures. Thank you, Julie. Please take it away.
Hello. I can't believe it's October. Like I
How did
can't
this happen?
even I don't know. I truly don't. I don't I don't get it.
And it
Don't get
started
it at
to
all.
feel like it too recently.
I am here for it. Listen, I cannot do the heat. I can't do it. I don't enjoy it. It's not a good time for me. It gives me a headache, and then I just want to hide inside. But I can't because that's our busiest season. So I am all good with the cooler weather. I'll probably be singing a different tune by January, but that's okay. Let me have it now. But all right, welcome everyone. Let me move this bar out of my way. No, it's good there. All right, so welcome. Thank you all for tuning in to listen to me talk about something you probably saw the title and were like, what? What is this weirdo gonna sign on and talk about today? But today I love doing spooky stuff in October. Like I'm ready for spooky season and pumpkin spice as soon as the fireworks are done on July 4th. So like as soon as September rolls around, I start with like the weird stuff, webinars and programs and I love doing that stuff. I think it's so fun. So it gives me an excuse to be weird. Like, not that I need one, but it's like a reason. Like, oh, why are you like so into spiders right now? Well, it's spooky season. Of course I'm into spiders. So I'm really excited today to talk to you about nature's vampires and zombies. So we're gonna see, first of all, like by definition, what even is a vampire or a zombie? And then what creatures around here can be considered vampires and zombies, and kind of some of the really cool biology behind what it takes to do those things, because it's not just like snacking on blood like you would think. It's actually really, really complex in nature. So we're going to talk about it. Again, my name is Julie, and I'm the Senior Director of Education and Curriculum for Allegheny Land Trust. And if you don't know who we are, I totally expect that because we are on the other side of the state. So we are over in Allegheny County, which is the county Pittsburgh is in. And we're smaller than natural lands. We protect about 4,000 acres of property, mostly in Allegheny County, but some in the surrounding counties as well. And I get what I consider the best job at ALT that, once a property is, we found it, we fundraise for it, we close on it, we steward it, we, manage it for invasives and trails and parking and all of that stuff. I get to take people outside and teach them why nature is just like the coolest thing. And so a lot of my job consists of like going outside and looking for bugs and mushrooms and teaching people what they can eat out in nature and just all sorts of stuff. We have classes, everything from stuff like this, nature's vampires and zombies. During the holidays, I do a animals what is it? Festive fauna of our favorite holiday songs. So we talk about like what is a turtle dove and what is a reindeer and how is it different than a white-tailed deer and fun things like that. So these fun, unique webinars, but also monthly science strolls. We do owl prows, full moon hikes, adult and kid summer camps. Those are really fun and just a wide, wide, wide range of different things. So, if you want to learn more about ALT, who we are, and what we do, as well as sign up for some more of those programs, I know you guys are on the eastern side of the state, but there's at least one free webinar a month that I do aside from these programs that you can sign up and come to for free and listen to me yap for an hour about like the most random stuff. Last month we did what do we do? Seed saving and reducing food waste. And in November, we'll do turkeys. And December is that festive holiday one. So we got all sorts of stuff. I think in March, I'm going to do a sting spores and what did I call it? Stings, scrapes, and spores or something along those lines. But Pennsylvania's most irritating residents. So we're going to talk about like poison ivy and bees and wasps and stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to making that one this winter. But anywho, back to our zombies and vampires chat today. Now, vampires have been around a whole lot longer than what we think of when we think of a vampire. So like when we think of a vampire, we typically think of like Dracula. Well, Dracula came about in like the 18th century. So Dracula is very, very old, and that character is pretty old. But vampire is a word that appears all the way back to like the 11th through the 13th centuries. The vampires have been around a really, really long time. And in most cultures, minus Eastern European culture, a vampire is a ghoul or a type of spirit and not necessarily in human form. And, in fact, it wasn't until Eastern Europeans and the Dracula character that we saw vampires in human form. So pretty interesting little bit of history there. But if you're a vampire, the whole thing that makes you a vampire is essentially that you feed on the essence of the living, most likely blood. So, a vampire is what we call hematophagous. Hematophagous is the fancy word for blood eater. So, if you're a hematophagous, you are a specialist on feeding off of blood from living creatures. So, you'll hear me say hematophagous or hematophagy as well, the different forms of that same word. But you hear that a lot today because that's what we are focusing on creatures that are hematophagous, that have adapted and evolved to specifically feed on blood, which is pretty fascinating stuff. It looks like okay, that was someone in the Q&A with questions. They're good now. So the first vampire we're going to talk about is one that we probably think of immediately when you say the word bloodsucker. When you say the word bloodsucker and like, well, in my neck of the woods, southwestern Pennsylvania, but also in southeastern Pennsylvania, 9 times out of 10, someone's going to say a mosquito. Now, mosquitoes are true flies. The name mosquito actually translates to little fly. And being a true fly, that means they only have one set of wings. So other creatures like bees and butterflies have four wings. But flies, all of the flies, whether you're a hoverfly or a mosquito or a housefly, one set of two wings. So that's something to keep in mind when we're looking at different creatures is that you can tell right away kind of what family they fall into by looking at the wings. And if they only have two wings, you know they're a fly. They can't be anybody else. Now, they have a very, very slim, slender, segmented body. That means their body, you can kind of see like almost like little stripes along the body where their body is broken up. They have six legs, so they are not arachnids. They are not in the arachnid family. They only have six legs, and some of our other vampires that we'll talk about next are arachnids with eight legs. But mosquitoes only have six. Their mouth is what's really interesting about them is their mouth parts are highly elongated, which makes it look like a little needle. And they have both piercing and sucking mouth parts. So once they pierce the skin, they then suck the blood up through that little needle. And the needle is actually incredibly interesting. It's like when you look closely at it under a microscope, it's very fine and it's got lots of teeny tiny little tips on it to make it less detectable to the host that they are going to feed off of. And worldwide, there's over 3,600 species of mosquitoes. That's a ton of species of mosquito. And lucky for us, there's 60 here in PA, 60 kinds. That's a ton of different mosquitoes. And unfortunately, no matter where you go, I know sometimes when we think about like vacations and trips, you think about like, oh, how bad are the bugs going to be? And unfortunately, unless you go to Antarctica, you're going to have mosquitoes. They are everywhere. They're what we call cosmopolitan, which means they have a huge range, and they are found all over the world. Most, in fact, all mosquitoes, no matter where they are in the world, even like the tropical ones, are generally less than an inch in length. So all mosquitoes are pretty small. That's why when we see, I know, especially in the summertime, when you see those really big bugs on like your wall or your porch or your patio, and you say, "Oh my gosh, look at that mosquito." Well, those aren't mosquitoes. Those are going to be like your crane flies and your mayflies because mosquitoes around the world are an inch or less. And in fact, Pennsylvania's mosquitoes are even smaller than that. Our mosquitoes here in PA max out at about a quarter of an inch. So they're very, very tiny. So next time you see one of those big old mayflies and one of those big old crane flies, don't squish them because they are not mosquitoes. They are not going to suck your blood. And in fact, those creatures, those mayflies and crane flies, live only days. They don't feed at all. Their entire point of life as an adult is to just mate and die. That's all they got. So they are incredibly harmless. They might be a pest. I don't know if you've seen you guys are a little bit farther away, so you may not see it as much, but up along Lake Erie, especially in the Cleveland area and Sandusky, which is where Cedar Point is, every year they get a really bad mayfly hatching, and the mayflies just absolutely cover everything. It's wild. Look up the pictures, but they are all over the place, but they are totally harmless. They don't live very long, so don't squish those guys when you see them. They are harmless. Now, mosquitoes get a really horrible rap, but here's the thing. They are technically the deadliest animal in the world. And that's not because of sharp teeth or direct attacks or being trampled like some of our other creatures in the world. Like a hippo is terrifying. Like I don't want anything to do with a hippo. That is too much animal. They are huge, they are mean, and they are so fast for how big they are. You would not expect a hippo to hit like 20 plus miles an hour, but they will like barrel you over. Mosquitoes are deadlier than all of the other creatures on the planet. They cause close to probably, on the lower estimate, 500,000, but upwards of 750,000 or 725,000 deaths per year that we know are directly attributed to mosquitoes. Now, there's probably more out there, just like anything that we don't realize what a person has when they pass away or it goes unreported. So that number is probably higher. But those deaths are mostly attributed to things like malaria and West Nile that are spread through mosquito bites. So mosquitoes become the host for some of those bacteria and viruses, and then they pass them along to people. And it's actually a fairly complicated routine. Like sometimes some of those diseases have to pass through multiple hosts before they get to the mosquito, before they get to us. So the fact that that many people are infected a year is just incredible when you think about all of the steps that have to go into that bacteria or virus being passed along before it even gets to us. That's why when you travel out of the country, a lot of times you have to get like a malaria vaccine or a West Nile vaccine. And I know there's, pill forms now that they give you, and they recommend you take like mosquito nets because it is so prevalent in other parts of the world. That's where most of those deaths are happening, is other parts of the world. Do we have it here? Sure, but in much smaller numbers than, say Africa and Asia and some of our other countries. Now, while they are incredibly dangerous in that regard, in the spread of disease, all mosquitoes are pollinators. So every single mosquito, male, female, of every species, feeds on plant nectar. It's only the females of some species. So right away, half the mosquitoes in the world do not feed on blood because only the females feed on blood. So right away, 50% are harmless to people because the males are not coming after you. They're not biting you. They're not the ones spreading the disease. It's the females. And that's because the females need the extra protein in blood to help with egg production. Sorry. So mosquitoes, much like, human women, when needing to raise a young, produce offspring, you tend to need some extra nutrients in your body because your body is working hard to produce the eggs or produce the cells for the baby. So you need some extra boost in a lot of things. And for mosquitoes, some of them can't even create eggs in their body until they have a blood meal. So only those females of some species. So it's not every female of every species, it's just some species of female mosquitoes that feed on the blood to help with egg production. Now, of those female mosquitoes who are feeding on blood, not all of them will even consider coming to a human. There are mosquitoes that specialize in birds, amphibians, reptiles, horses, pigs. Many, many, many are more commonly biting our domesticated animals and our livestock than they are us. So not even all of them prefer to bite a human because guess what? We see them and what do? We do that. Many other animals can't do that. So many have evolved and adapted to not even bother with us at all because we are too much of a danger or a threat for them to land on us and try to take our blood for their blood meal to make those eggs to reproduce. Their saliva contains an enzyme, and this is very common of most hematophagous blood-eating creatures, is that their saliva, their spit, contains an enzyme that blocks blood clotting. Because if your blood clots, and when your blood clots, that means that's what causes it to stick together and stop bleeding. That's why we don't bleed out every time we get a paper cut because our blood clots and we stop bleeding. But their enzymes in their saliva um, stops clotting. And that's because if the blood clots, they can't drink it. If it's not moving, if it's not flowing, they can't uptake it through those little piercing needles in their mouth. So they have to have that enzyme to keep the blood flowing so that they continue to drink from it. Because as soon as it clots, they can't uptake it anymore. And you are useless to them if your blood has clot. So they don't want to deal with you if your blood is all nice and clotty. And of course, it's not, a huge amount of that enzyme because if it was, we would just keep bleeding and bleeding. But it really just prevents that clotting for a couple extra minutes so that they can get all of the liquid that they want in a meal. I have a whole talk on mosquitoes. They're wildly interesting too. Um, they're they're fascinating creatures and they get a bad rap, but the biology behind them is fascinating. And here's a female here having some blood for a blood meal, but those tiny little quarter of an inch bodies have multiple stomachs and they process that blood meal in one stomach and they retain all of like the red blood cells and the proteins and the good stuff in one stomach and then they process all of the water through the second stomach and then it comes out so that they can fit more blood in there. So they're like double processing every meal to get the water out, to eject the water so they can fit more of the good stuff in so that they can make more eggs, which is really, really interesting stuff. Who would have thought that multiple stomachs can like get in that tiny little like quarter of an inch body. So really crazy biological stuff going on in a mosquito body. Okay, so we're gonna move on from mosquitoes to our next vampire. And this one ticks just give me the heebie-jeebies. And I think they give everyone the heebie-jeebies because like as soon as you find one on yourself, I don't know about you, but I start doing that like every little thing like you think is another one and you just like scratch and ooh, it gets all over you. But ticks are a little different. So we saw our friend the mosquito, who is a true fly and it was an insect and had 6 legs. But a tick is an arachnid with 8. However, larval ticks or baby juvenile ticks have 6 legs until they have their first blood meal and molt. So ticks go through life phases, they're when they hatch, when they're born, they are teeny, teeny, tiny, and I'm actually going to show you some larval ticks here in a bit that I had the lovely fortune of lint rolling off my body um, for you to see. Lucky you. But they're so small you can't even see the legs. But if I could see the legs, there would be 6 and not 8 because they hadn't had their first meal and they hadn't shed yet. Now, ticks, unlike mosquitoes, are obligate hematophages. Males and females of every species feed on blood. It's not just the females for egg production. This is their only way they feed is on blood. So they don't have any other options. They're not drinking nectar like mosquitoes. It's blood or bust. So they're not going to make it on any other liquid or any other food or substance. That's all they got. And their body is really strange. So we saw the mosquito who had the long, skinny body and those really long, spindly legs. The tick is the like exact opposite. They are little and squat and fat, and they almost look like just like a round blob with those 2 little mouth parts sticking out. They have all 3 body parts, head, thorax, abdomen. In most spiders, the head and the thorax is combined into what's called a cephalothorax. So spiders look like they have 2 body parts. They're all 3 in there. They're just kind of stuffed together. And because these are arachnids too in the same family, they have the same thing going on. So their head and thorax is combined, and then their abdomen is that big bulky piece that you see. And that head part of their cephalothorax is completely retractable, so it's like sucked into the thorax bit. So all that you see are those 2 little wiggly mouth parts that come out. And the mouth parts are kind of beak-like. They're really like they're really stabby. If that's like, is that a good like descriptor? Like they're stabby, because the whole purpose of being a tick is to have blood. So like that's all your mouth part does. It doesn't pierce and suck. It just sticks right in you, stabs into your skin, and then up comes the blood that they eat. Now, ticks can find their host, aka us, and other animals. It's not just us. But they can find those hosts lots of different ways. Some of them via odor, heat. Some of them have like heat sensing, much like some of our pit vipers do. Moisture, infrared light, vibrations, different species do it different ways. But all of them have what's called Haller's organs on their legs, which is essentially an antenna. So instead of having antenna that poke out, I think ticks would look ridiculous with antenna, but I don't know. Maybe they would look cuter if a tick could possibly be cute. But instead of having them on their head, they've got them on those front two legs. And to this day, I wish I could find this photo that I took a couple years ago, and I can't find it anywhere. But I was out hiking and I was taking a picture of a flower, and I didn't even notice there was a tick on the flower. And he was like reaching up, like the baboon in The Lion King with his front two legs up, like reaching for me to come latch on to me. But what they're doing is they stick those front two legs up because those Howler's organ, those modified antenna, they're using those to sense the heat and the moisture to be able to find the host. So that's what they're like. You see them, and sometimes those front two legs are just kind of like looking around, feeling around. That's what they're doing is they're sensing for those different ways that they locate the hosts. Now, unfortunately for us, I know we said, mosquitoes are cosmopolitan, except Antarctica. You could go on vacation in Antarctica and be safe from mosquitoes, but you can't go to Antarctica and be safe from ticks. They have been found feeding on penguins in Antarctica. So there is nowhere on this earth there are not ticks. They're everywhere. And I know we like to say we say, like cockroaches will be the ones to survive the nuclear apocalypse, like the apocalypse if anybody survives, it's going to be cockroaches. I don't think so. Cockroaches are not they're hardy, don't get me wrong, they're hardy. But compared to a fruit fly and a tick, those are the two that's going to make it. Like if I had to put my money on anybody surviving an absolute apocalypse, I would put my money on ticks. Ticks can withstand below freezing temperatures for more than 2 weeks, and they can go like an entire year without having a blood meal. They can just not eat and be okay. They could be completely dehydrated, and you can stick them in water, and they'll just come back. Like it's crazy. Like it's so hard to get rid of them. Like they can withstand a lot of crushing. So like that's why it's so hard when you get a tick to like squish it because their bodies are like little shields and they're really, really hard to get rid of. So, if anyone ever asks, what's going to survive the apocalypse? Ticks. Ticks are going to make it, unfortunately. And they are everywhere. And there's lots of different kinds of ticks, over 900 species. Now, here in PA, we've got like 25, which is too many. But unfortunately, that's just biology, and that's what we got. And they are an incredibly important piece of the ecosystem, don't get me wrong. They are a vital, vital food source to especially birds. Everything from like domesticated chickens to our songbirds will eat ticks. There's debate on opossums. I know there's always the thing that goes around that says opossums eat 2,000 ticks a year. That's debatable. It depends on where you live. Scientists have studied opossums and what they've eaten for a while now. And in some areas, sure, there's ticks in their stomach that they have eaten, but in other areas, there's none. So it's a really variable thing. Opossums are still great though, and you should love them, even if they don't eat 2,000 ticks a year. But in Pennsylvania, 25 species, by far and in large, the most common are those first two, the black-legged deer or deer ticks, same name. We use the name interchangeably. And then the dog tick is our second most common. Those two make up like over 90% of the ticks we see, so huge, hugely dominated by the black-legged and the dog ticks. And then we have the Lone Star tick, which I think I've only seen a Lone Star tick maybe once or twice. I've never had one on me, thankfully. But there are, 22 other, I'm not very good at math, 22 other species aside from these three, but these are by far and large the most common, especially with those first two. Now, there's really great organizations out there that if you get a tick on you, you can send it away for free and they will tell you if that tick had any particular diseases. Up until a year or two ago, I am outside for a living. So I got ticks all the time, and my doctor got tired of me calling every time I got a tick. So she just gave me like a bottle of antibiotics and was like, just take one every time, like you get one and stop calling me. Um, so like, I just have a bottle of antibiotics. But I joined the Lyme's vaccine study like 2 years ago where I volunteered to get like the experimental Lyme's vaccine for people to see if it's going to work. And I haven't had a single tick since then, which is crazy because I was like, man, I'm the prime candidate. They are going to love me because I'm outside all the time. I'm going to be calling them all the time with like ticks that I pull off of myself. Not a single one. So whether that's good or bad, I don't know. I don't know how much I'm actually contributing to scientific research now, but it's great for me because I haven't had any ticks. And I haven't had to take those horrid stomach ruining antibiotics. Um, but anywho, back to back to the ticks. The black-legged deer tick, the one that's the top photo there, that's the one I see the most commonly. That's the one that's usually on you. Now, they are some of our smaller ticks, but they can all be real small when they're babies, and I will show you that momentarily. But they cause most commonly Lyme. This is where our Lyme disease comes from. Anaplasmosis, babiosis, Bartonellosis, Borrelia. Most of those diseases cause flu-like symptoms on like a long-term scale. Some of them can cause, brain swelling and far more serious things, but um, for the most part, they're not as deadly, although some of them can be. Lyme is terrible. Lyme is awful. I remember, gosh, when did I graduate? 15 or so years ago in college. One of my sorority sisters was just incredibly sick all the time. And they tested her for everything from like lupus to MS to different cancers. And they just could not figure it out. And it finally came out, like months later that she had Lyme. And she was that sick from Lyme. And she ended up having to get like IV antibiotics like weekly for months. And it was great, wild. This was before we really had a better understanding of how common Lyme was and how often we're seeing it. And yeah, it's terrible. It has some really terrible long-term effects, the joint pain and the headaches and rashes, and it's really, really nasty exhaustion, nasty, nasty disease. So if you ever, have a tick embedded on you, be safe and send it to Tick Lab and call your doctor and, get tested for Lyme and make sure they test for all the varieties of Lyme because there's like a common test, but then there's a test that costs a little extra, of course, because it's the medical system, but is more accurate on whether or not you actually have Lyme. So make sure, you ask for that and send that tick away just to be safe because you don't want to mess with any of these diseases. Now, the dog tick more commonly causes tularemia, Rocky Mountain spotted fever, and achelorosis. Not so much the Lyme disease and some of those others, but still some nasty stuff. Dog ticks tend to prefer smaller mammals, so they're more often commonly seen on like your chipmunks and your squirrels and those kind of furry outside animals. And I'll tell you who really suffers from ticks that no one thinks about, snakes, because more than half their body is touching the ground at all times. And we'll come across snakes in the wild that are just covered in ticks. So snakes, I know people are iffy about them. They're some of my favorite creatures, but they really suffer from ticks. And they often get overlooked because people don't think that a tick would want to be on them because they're not furry or warm, super warm like we are. That is not the case. They are easy pickings for ticks, and the snakes are often covered in them. Now, the Lone Star tick is the least common of those three. He's that bottom one. He's got the bright yellow spot on his back. And the Lone Star tick can cause some unique things. So it causes some of the similar, can cause, not all of them carry these diseases, but can cause the same ones as the dog tick, as well as starry, which is the southern tick something rash infection. It causes rashes all over the body. And then the alpha gal syndrome, which is the one that's unique to the Lone Star tick. Uh, flowing close to the surface of the skin. So you'll always see them taking blood from an area where the blood vessels are really high and close to the skin, like around your ears and your neck, and places like that. So they're not like taking it from your thigh or a place that's really hard to access. They want it where the blood is close to the skin, so it's easier for them to take. Now, another really interesting thing is that most vampire bats prefer livestock and they prefer wild animals. Very rarely do vampire bats feed on sleeping people, and they prefer sleeping creatures because sleeping creatures don't fight back. And part of their brain, the sound processor in their brain, has adapted to detecting the breathing sounds of sleeping animals. So think about that. Like their brain has adapted to be able to tell that a creature is sleeping based on how it's breathing and the patterns of its breathing and its chest rising and falling and its heart beating. And now, not only do you have like essentially a heat-seeking missile on your nose that helps you detect blood flow, but your brain hears differently and your body processes blood differently. So vampire bats are missing a gene called the Rep15 gene, and that gene is what um, processes iron in the body. And when you don't have that gene, it allows extra iron to come out of your body. So that's what keeps bats safe from iron poisoning, because you can have too much iron in your body, is that lack of gene allows them to process a ton of iron through their body. So they have a specialized nose, they've got a specialized brain, they've got specialized bodies and their genes, their genetic makeup is different. And then, something we have to clear up is the sheer fact that they are not out there sucking so much blood that they're causing damage. In fact, they feed like 20-minute intervals and they only take like 2 tablespoons of blood in that entire time. It's not very much. They're not sucking a creature dry. They are solely taking what they need, and that's about 2 tablespoons, which isn't that much. Not much at all. All right, so I wanted to talk a little bit about them because they are so cool. You know, incredible cool creatures. We don't have them here, but when you think of a vampire, that's generally top of the list. So I wanted to put him in there too. Now, zombies originated in Haitian culture, and they refer to the reanimation of corpses. So a lot of the movie portrayals are accurate in reanimating corpses. That's where the story comes from. Unlike, the vampires, where we get Dracula, it's a little more um, similar to the original story of what a zombie is. But here, when we talk about nature's zombies here in Pennsylvania, we are essentially talking about something really fancy called entomopathogenic fungi. And essentially, what an entomopathogenic fungi is a fungi that affects insects, controls its brain, kills it, and then uses its body to reproduce straight out of a horror film. And a lot of you are probably thinking like, "Oh, isn't that what that TV show is about?" I haven't watched it, so I couldn't tell you. What is it, The Last of Us or something like that? Um, I think it's based off a cordyceps mushroom, which we'll see here in a moment. But there's tons of different entomopathogenic fungi around the world, and they fall into generally a couple different groups. And we're going to look at a couple groups. We're going to look at particularly the ones that I've seen in cicadas, flies, and we're going to look at the one that affects like caterpillars and the one here. These are all my photos, by the way, of the entomopathogenic fungi. I think there's only one or two that one of my friends or colleagues took, but that one on the left side, it's an insect on the back of an elm leaf, it looks like. I can't quite tell. But that is a gibuella that affects spiders, so that is a fungi that affected the spider's brain, told it to glue itself to the bottom of the leaf, and then overtook its body and stuck it there. Like I got this photo before it completely completed its life cycle because it would shoot out little spikies to send out spores, which is how. pool noodles shooting out of somebody's back shirt or something. It's crazy. But they got that idea from these mushrooms here, cordyceps. Now, the last one I wanted to show you in our zombie family, we saw that Glibbuella on the spider, we saw that Canthomyces on the moth, we saw the Massospora on the cicada, and we just saw the cordyceps, which infects caterpillars and other insects too. Here's one, an interesting one. This is sugar icing fungus, and sugar icing affects a lot of different insects. But when Sarah and I, my coworker Sarah, we were out on a walk at one of our properties, Dead Man's Hollow to be exact, we found sugar icing all over an infestation of lanternflies, which was pretty cool. We were really excited to see it. And I have, this is probably not the exact specimen, but of course I saved one. So you can see the fungus coming out of the body plates and even from the joints in between the legs, like that one on the leaf there. But pretty crazy stuff. So we noticed that this particular tree was just absolutely covered in lanternflies and in lanternfly honeydew, which is their secretion. It's really sticky and it's like black. But that honeydew attracts a particular fungus called honeydew eater, which is a whole other species of fungus. And it also, that sticky stuff can attract the sugar icing fungus. And this was the first time we had seen it on a lanternfly, which was super cool to see. And we were like, yes, go mushroom, go. Like, take them all. So we were jazzed to see that. But of course, we saved some samples so that we could show people. So that was pretty neat. So there's hope that a mushroom might help with the lanternflies. I don't know how they are over there for you all now. They seem a little better this year for us. Yeah, it hasn't been as horrid. I mean, they're still all over the place, but it's been a little better this year. I think the numbers have gone down slightly. And I always like to wrap up with a funny. Always have to have a funny in celebration of our talks about zombies and vampires. A little zombie related. What was this? Not The Last of Us. This was The Walking Dead, huh? Yeah. My parents watched that show. I never watched it. But another fun zombie fungi moment. This is when zombies like really started having a moment again, was I think the show, The Walking Dead. But as always, thank you for listening to me talk about really random stuff. But I know you guys probably have some questions, so I will take all of your questions. And if you all have any, yeah, any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And I know I'll be back for at least a couple more talks here the rest of the year, so you can hear me listen to talk about other random stuff. But yeah,
Thank you
happy
so
to
much,
answer.
Julie.
You're welcome.
So awesome. I love learning all about that. This was the most, I was really looking forward to this one. We do have a couple questions. We have some in the Q&A.
Okay.
Kit asked, we call the sucking mouth parts of a butterfly. Wow, I don't even want to try to pronounce that. Proboscis?
Proboscis.
Proboscis. Thank you.
That's
Is
just the
that the
plural.
correct term?
Proboscis.
Proboscis or proboscis. Thank you. Is that the correct term for the sucking mouth parts of ticks, mosquitoes, etc.?
They're all different. So they
All
all have
different.
different names. So the proboscis is one that like rolls out, essentially, but the mouth parts of other creatures are different. Hmm.
Thank you.
Hmm.
And then we had another question. Does alpha gall syndrome last forever?
I'm not sure. I think it does, but I'm not positive on that. Um, I know there's a lot of like sometimes treatments out there for different allergens, so I'm not sure what the treatment is like for that one. I know sometimes like you can get like tiny injections of things to help build up your body's um, immunity to it again and help your body not produce all of those problematic reactions to it. So yeah, I'm not sure. I don't, it hasn't really been known long enough yet for us to know, I don't think. It's still being, I don't want to say being discovered, but it's still relatively new. Um, so it's gonna take us a while to fully understand and to know how to treat that for sure.
And those were the only questions that came. Oh, one more. There we go. I observed a spider acting erratically, running in circles, twitching, curling up, and read this behavior could be a fungus. Have you ever seen this behavior in an infected bug?
Not an infected bug per se. Normally, they either tell the insect to go straight up a tree, cling on and die, like high up, which is that summit disease. And then sometimes the ones that are Ophidiocordyceps is what affects ants, and that tells the ant to go down into their ant hill, and it tells them to go down because one, it's warm down there, and that helps this fungus spread faster, and two, that's a really contained area underground. It gets all the ants once they get under there. So it normally either tells them to go up or go down. The one that affect millipedes tells them to go to the top of a log, and they just sit there and die on the top of a log. I've never seen that particular behavior. I mean, it's entirely possible. I certainly am no expert, but possible. Sometimes spiders twitch because their body is essentially hydraulic, so their legs move via liquids flowing up and down the body. So sometimes when you see that, it's because that's out of control. That's why when a spider dies, like in your windowsill or something, and you find it later, its legs are curled up. That's because the fluid has dried up, and when it dries up, the legs curl. So their little legs are basically like pistons with liquids.
I'm so excited even more now for we have our Science of Spiders
Oh
webinar in
yeah, oh no, I
December.
gave some away. Spoiler.
No, that's super exciting. That's just a teaser. Now everyone has to go sign up for that. Um, and we also have Coyotes 101 in November. I'm really excited for that.
Oh.
And I'm going to be emailing you ASAP, Julie, so I can get more on your schedule
Oh yeah, before it gets real crazy.
before it gets
Yeah.
real crazy.
Yeah, we already have like 6 or 8 programs in April, which is insane.
Yeah, that
With
is
people
wild.
know. So we had to like start telling people that they had to get in before Christmas, if they wanted for April because of, everyone wants to do stuff in April for Earth Day. So yeah, now they're gonna have to start getting in by Halloween. They
Right?
want because people would call us like April 1st, be like, can we do something for Earth Day? And like next Earth Day, maybe.
You're a little too late.
Yeah,
Yeah.
2026.
Yep. Next year. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Julie. Always a pleasure learning from you. And I know you have your contact there if anyone wants to contact you. And as I noted,
Hmm.
please sign up for Coyotes 101 and Science of Spiders. And then we'll have more with Julie. And she also has lots on her website. So please check it out.